So recently I've made subtle changes to some exercises and to my workouts, and it's been paying off big time. Now, you've likely heard if you want to maximize your muscle gains, you need to work your muscles through a full range of motion, but a lot of guys don't realize what a full range of motion looks like for some exercises. For example, the chest press here, where we're taught to begin with retracting the shoulder blades, so kind of squeezing them together and driving your upper back into the bench, keeping it in contact with the bench at all times. As you're driving that way upwards, you're thinking of squeezing your upper arms against your pecs, and you're trying to get to the point where you're locking out your elbows for a brief moment there, again, not allowing your shoulders to leave the bench. And this form, this technique is what most people, what you see in this video here, would consider a full range of motion, and it's the movement pattern that is going to maximize our strength gains. It's protecting the shoulder, it's keeping everything nice and tight there, and I think in this lift I'm pretty damn strong. 290 pounds for 9 repetitions there, weighing a buck 48, so 148 pounds. I'm 5'7", nearly 49 years young here, so I think I'm pretty damn strong with this lift here. Yet what I just realized as I'm beginning to incorporate more calisthenic movements into my overall training plan here, I'm actually weak with this movement here. And what I'm finding is a lot of hand balancing poses that require me to kind of push my hands, drive my hands into the ground, but have a bit of a rounded upper back there. Whether I'm in a crow pose or trying to transition into a handstand, I am really weak in that top position. So when I'm trying to lift myself up, my torso wants to collapse down because I am really weak in that top position. So what I've been doing to correct that issue there is I'm still doing 1 or 2 sets with my typical form that you saw in that video there, but then I'm going to finish off with at least 1 set where I'm allowing my shoulders to leave that bench. I'm really trying to drive that weight up as high as I can, kind of rounding the upper back there. And when I first did this a few weeks ago, I was incredibly weak. Like I had to cut the weight by 1/3 just to get the same amount of reps in there with this full range of motion. I've worked myself up now, so it's about a little more than half the weight that I would typically lift there. So feeling stronger and stronger and improving in this lift there, that full range of motion, just for at least 1 set there, and it's carrying over into the calisthenic exercises. Now, same thing with the shoulder press. So when I'm trying to like initially hold a handstand there, what I realized again, like you want to try to extend your arms, you're like stretching yourself out as much as possible, so your head should be at your shoulders there, but I found like my head always wanted to sink down away from my shoulders, so kind of shrugged up there. So again, with the shoulder press here, realizing that my typical range of motion was still keeping my shoulder blades depressed down. So now I'm at least doing 1 set where I'm going to fully extend at the top there. And there's times where I will finish off that set, both the chest press and the shoulder press here, with just that top partial range of motion. So when I know I can't get in a complete full repetition, if I lower the weight, it's not going to get back up again. I'm just going to stay at the top and just do tiny little partials in that top few inches there that are really helping build up the strength in the weakest link. So you're only as strong as your weakest link. And again, this is really carrying over into my hand balancing practices. And again, these kinds of things are great for injury prevention because oftentimes we're strong in that mid-range or a big range, but as soon as something happens, you reach for something and you're in an extended position, that's where you're weak, and that's where you could be likely more at risk of getting injured in that position there. So I'm really trying to become as able-bodied as I possibly can be and be as strong as I possibly can be throughout the entire range of motion. I've always been, for the longest time now, incorporating scapular retraction exercises, whether it's in a seated row. So after I do any kind of seated row or chest supported row, I'm going to do some sort of scapula retraction exercise, at least 1 set there. So if it's a chest supported row, it might be a prone shrug. If it's a seated row, cable seated row, I'll do a scapular retraction there. If it's a pull down exercise, I'm going to go through that vertical plane of motion rather than the horizontal plane of motion. So again, trying to strengthen the muscles that support the shoulder blades. Again, so crucial to our overall health, well-being, our functional strength, our posture. Again, strengthening these smaller muscles and the muscles throughout the full range of motion, that's just going to serve us best and allow us to be as able-bodied as we possibly can be. You saw in a recent video where, again, when I'm trying to do the L-sit, I couldn't fully lift my butt up off the ground, so I started doing some reverse shrugs where I'm pushing myself up. I'm on the dip bar and let my body sink down and then push my body up. So it's going to mimic that motion a little bit different than what a shrug would do. It's the absolute opposite there. So strengthening the muscles in a range that we're not typically used to doing. Same thing when it comes to my hip flexors. Again, you can be as strong as, again, I think it's an exercise that muscle group that's pretty strong for me. Hack squat, again, 290 pounds, I think is pretty damn good for like 12 repetitions here. Good depth, full range of motion. Love that movement, love that exercise, feel really strong with that. But and I'm strong with a lot of other lifts. I've lifted heavier before in the past, but 49 years old, kind of taper it down, but still relatively strong. But my hip flexors are super weak. If I just tried to raise my leg up, again, in the L-sit position, my quads would cramp because my hip flexors are so weak. They weren't able to do the work that they needed to do. If I'm standing and just trying to raise my leg up, keeping the knee locked straight in place, how high can I raise it? Again, when I'm trying to raise it as high as I can, initially, my quads would cramp. The hip flexors weren't doing the work. So wanting to make sure if I want to do some of these exercises, whether it's an L-sit or many other exercises, strengthen those hip flexors because they're going to serve me well. And again, it's great for injury prevention as well. So really trying to work on a lot of the smaller muscles, the muscles that get neglected from just focusing on like the big compound lifts, or the muscles that we think are going to serve us best. The exercises that we typically program into our workouts, yeah, they're great at building certain muscles. Most of the muscles that we see, the show muscles there, but really the functional strength, the functional muscles, the stabilizing muscles, the muscles that can really have an impact on a lot of our daily movements, we need to focus on those as well. So my workout programming has evolved in a way to incorporate some of these exercises. It's not that I'm getting rid of some of these movements, or that I'm going to always be performing that full range of motion, the extended range of motion. It's just making sure that I'm throughout the training year incorporating a variety of exercises that are going to allow me to feel my best, perform my best, and really set myself up for long-term success, being as able-bodied as I can for my full life. Like, I want to live this life to the fullest, right to the very end. I want to be out on adventures, being able to do everything that I possibly can do. So that's going to require me to incorporate a lot more of these kind of calisthenic type exercises, but learning from that and improving my weight training sessions as well, to kind of focus on those weaknesses and improve upon those weaknesses. So again, I think I'm pretty damn strong, but oftentimes we're not as strong as we think when it comes to that full range of motion and certain little muscles that we have been neglecting over time.